Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. It is just after 10 a.m. here in Kansas, and it is the 22nd of February. And this is Open Conversations with International Coaches. Three of us here today sharing our thoughts on challenging choices. And it was pointed out to me just a little while ago that title, Challenging Choices, has two directions to it. It can be choices that are challenging, and it can be us challenging our choices. And I really absolutely enjoy this topic. When it was mentioned last week that we would look at it, I was kind of excited because choices, not only are they a big part of my life, they're a big part of everybody's life, but I have embraced making choices as a key element of my life. And I'm looking forward to hearing what our other two panelists have to share about it as well, because I know they're very active and therefore making a lot of choices as well. Anyway, to get started, let's do some introductions. Cass, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cass J. Henry. I'm an abundance coach, and I work out of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, for my services both in person and virtually. And I'm still fighting that same cold as last week. So you'll hear that in my voice. As an abundance coach, it's my job to assist my clients in altering their perspective from one of lack to one of abundance. Together, we can discover the power of tools like affirmations, habit creation, mindset work, goal setting, experimentation, and journaling, just to name a few, with an overarching goal to achieve a more harmonious balance in life. If you find yourself feeling stuck and focusing on everything going wrong in your world right now, reach out and let's do a discovery call and see if we're a good fit. I'd love the opportunity to show you the abundance in your life right now. You can find me on cassjhenry.com.
Awesome, and that's a key element in success. Understanding that we do have so much abundance in our life, and I know Cass has the experience and the skill to share that with you. Shelly Ann, jump in.
Hi, good day. I'm saying good day because in Trinidad it's actually 12 o'clock midday. And even though I'm not in Trinidad right now, I'm still on Trini time. That's part of me. Um, I am Shelley-Ann Edwards Barron from Trinidad and Tobago, and I am a gratitude guide and habit coach. And what that means is that I help my clients implement what I call the gratitude strategy. And that is working on your self talk by saying the right words to yourself, speaking to yourself kindly. We look at saying it loud, which is making gratitude tangible, and we look at saying it always, which is creating that daily habit of gratitude. And that's because I believe that everyone over 40 deserves to pursue their goals with joy. But that's not exactly how things work in the real world for most of us. Sometimes we hit 40 and we start looking around and thinking, it's like we suddenly wake up and we don't know why we're where we are, how we got there, how to move forward. It gets really overwhelming and confusing. And for many people, what they do is to add to it and add more to their plate and try to do more and be more. And that often doesn't work. What actually works is assessing where you are and making the most of what exists as you are moving forward. And that's where the gratitude strategy comes in, and that's where choices come in. So, yes, I am thoroughly excited about this program as well because there's so much to uncover, especially as it relates to the challenging choices as well as our personal challenge to the choices that we make. I'm kind of obsessed with gratitude a little bit, so I actually have a program called Getting It Done with Gratitude. I do that every Thursday morning as well. And this morning we spoke about 4 ways to reset with gratitude. So if you're interested in listening to something like that, go to YouTube, Getting It Done with Gratitude. And if you want to talk more about gratitude, send me a message. You can find me on LinkedIn and on Facebook.
Awesome, awesome, and gratitude. I've always been kind of look at the brighter side of things in my life, but it wasn't until meeting Shelly Ann that I really understood and was able to embrace gratitude. Uh, what a difference! What a change when you start to realize um, how much there is. So if you take Cass with abundance and Shelly Ann with gratitude, they naturally go together. And when we add choices into the mix, it just opens up a whole world. This
Mhm.
is kind of a different approach today that we're seeing how all of this comes together. So let me introduce myself, and you can see where I fit into the mix. My name is Steve. I'm known by many online as the coach's coach. I'm a multi niche coaching practitioner, a published author, a digital content creator, an online presence consultant, a business success guide, and a personal development mentor. So I cover kind of a range of things. I work with coaches who want to start or expand their online presence. I help them get unstuck in their personal and business lives so they can move forward with their online journey of success. Personally, I earn my entire income online helping others do the same. You can find me at stephenbhenry.com. And as I often say, the time to hire your guide is before you get lost in the woods. So, with that, let's jump into the topic today, challenging choices. Who wants to start off?
Hmm. I have so many things to say, but what one of the things that really I want to get into it kind of early is the idea that we can challenge our choices. And that's something that I hear people say a lot. I had no choice. And I feel like there are moments when we can challenge our choices. Now, that doesn't mean that we might not make the same choice because of the consequences and other things that we don't want to deal with, but it is a choice and we can challenge what we're faced with and not just, give in to it. Might not be easy, but we can.
Yeah, the idea, the difference between I have to do something and I choose to do something, right? So if it's a chore and you feel like you have to do it, you don't have a choice, then you start to feel resentment and you want to pull away from the thoughts around it. But when it becomes something that you choose to do, then you can feel engaged in it and you can feel like you have agency over it. And so that difference in mindset between being stuck in the have tos and getting to do in choices.
Yeah, looking back over a long and eventful and some might say successful life, with all the experiences that I've had, I recognize that I probably was not the best father. I've had the opportunity to raise two sets of girls, two girls each in two marriages, and looking back over it, I didn't have a manual. I found out pretty quickly that kids don't come with a user's manual, and there's no warranty agreement either. You can't send them back. It's parenthood is an experience, and there's a lot of choices to make in parenthood. But I think the one choice that I made right and really I feel the best about is giving my kids the opportunity to make choices, encouraging them to make choices. So, trying not to, criticize them or punish them for making the wrong choice. The fact that they made a choice, that they deliberately made a choice, that it just didn't go along with the flow, or they chose to go along with the flow. They weren't just drawn along. That I felt was very, very important. And as I look at, the lives of the four girls today, and two of them were mine, and grew through the whole process. Two of them I inherited and started late with them, but nonetheless took that approach. And so when I look at the four of them and I see what they're doing today, I hope that I had a little bit of input into their ability to, and their desire to make choices today, because I see them making choices and mostly good choices. I'm impressed by that aspect of it. And when I look back on it, I feel um, gratitude. I, I feel a sense of well being that they're out there making choices, and maybe a little bit because I encouraged it. And I think as a coach, working with other coaches primarily, I work with people in other businesses as well, but primarily with coaches. And I try to encourage coaches to be able to decisively make choices, to challenge themselves to make choices, to challenge the choices they make, to review them and check them and validate them so that they can make better choices in the future. And if we actively make choices rather than just letting life happen to us, I think we have a better experience.
Yeah, and I think when we, as you mentioned, the gratitude, for me, the point of using gratitude and what I call infusing your life with gratitude, and in this case, infusing your choices with gratitude, we tend to make more effective choices, I guess if that's the word, choices that support us better when we come from that position, as opposed to like, I know, like in Cassie's case, she would understand, when you make a choice from a position of abundance as opposed to a position of scarcity, the choice tends to work more for abundance for you. Yeah.
Yeah, the example I like is like if you are let go from your job, you can be very angry. You can have negative thoughts about the people who let you go. You can be negative about your situation. Now you don't have a job, and that doesn't really get you anywhere except feeling badly. But if you choose
Hmm.
to look at it as an opportunity, this is the chance to maybe change your career or find a better place, or you know look into more schooling or something else that is going to happen next from your what's your
Hmm.
next
Hmm.
choice, what's your that perspective of abundance. There's the whole world out there, and now I'm not stuck in that job. I can do anything. And that's that abundance mindset, that there isn't just one job for everybody, or there isn't just only a job that you can get. So that example of being able to let go of the negative and embrace that choice that you get to make.
Hmm. Hmm. And in continuing with the example of jobs, sometimes you are shifted around. You might not have lost the job, but you're moved from one department to another. And that move, you may be in a place where you enjoyed, but you're being moved to somewhere else. Or you've been asked to do something that you might not feel is in your job spec, and it's kind of stretching you, and you're wondering, why are they picking on you, and why are they always asking you to do these things? And my sister has a phrase, everything is a learning experience when it comes to your job, especially if this is not the position you want to stay at. If you want to expand and to grow, then every opportunity that comes to you is an opportunity to learn. And so you can learn more about the organization. You could learn additional skills that can help you get bumped up to a more pleasing position, and so on. So there's a lot that you can look at and see, both the things that would not serve you as well as things that will serve you. And once you choose to focus on what serves you while still acknowledging the other parts of it, because there is a balance, you can find yourself actually feeling more empowered and more joyous as you're going forward with things. And I mean, I have lots of personal experiences that I could share with that. And it really feels like something that I really want people to understand, that we talk about mindset a lot and we talk about perspective a lot, but sometimes it feels theoretical and it doesn't really feel like something practical that I can use to make my life better. And it really does sound like a cliche when people say, "Oh, you need to change your mindset." It's like, yeah, but how? My answer and what has worked for me and many other people is starting with that gratitude infusion to start shifting the thoughts toward making better choices.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a choice. Choosing
Mm.
to change your mindset,
Yeah.
choosing to infuse gratitude. And we don't, choice, choosing, making choices, it's all around us all the time. We don't consciously think about it as we go through our day. Normally, we're making choices left and right, and they can be very simple choices, and they can be very elaborate choices that can be, life changing. And maybe the more elaborate ones we think about a bit more, and perhaps discuss with someone. But the smaller changes, surprisingly, have big effects on our lives.
Yeah.
And we do not necessarily think about them, discuss them with others, and consciously, apply the process of making a choice. We just simply choose. And I hope that the people, listening to this discussion either live today or in the replay, will will think on that. Will make the choice to examine themselves and how they choose things, because it can be very, very important. A very small thing can grow into something, bigger. You make a choice and you're into it, and then other things happen, and it affects you in difficult ways. I had a wonderful secretary when I was at Motorola years ago. Um, I was the manager of facilities in a very large division of Motorola, and I had a lot of choices to make. And I had during my time there, I had three secretaries, and the second one that I got, the first one left, and I think she got married, went on, to a married life, and made the choice to do that. And I had to find another secretary, and interviewed quite a few, and I hired one, and she was just really, really good. I really uh, uh, benefited from having her there. She got me organized. She, took care of a lot of the little tasks that I had been handling before, but she could readily do. And she just seemed to know my thoughts. She would show up and plunk papers on my desk that I needed 5 minutes from now, and I hadn't asked for them, and I wasn't, I had kind of surprised me, that sort of thing. She was just really good. And she came to me one day and asked for a raise. And in that division of Motorola at that time, there was kind of an austerity program going on, and there was no money for raises except at the time of the annual reviews. And I couldn't give her a raise. I actually spoke to my boss and personnel, and see, to try to get it through, because I wanted to keep her, and I suspected the reason she was asking me is that she had a job offer somewhere else and was going to leave. And so I came back to her and I talked to her, and then told her I couldn't get her a raise, and but was what was the problem, and was she going to leave? And she was leaving for $1 an hour more at another place that had actually offered her the job. And I really felt bad about that, because she was very good, but I couldn't keep her. I told her that I would replace her with a temp, for a couple of weeks, about all I could do, while I was looking for a permanent replacement. And if she found she didn't like it where she was going and wanted to come back, I would gladly take her back. A lot of paperwork and that kind of stuff, but I would do it anyway because she was worth it. And she did go away, and she took the other job. And at first, she really liked the other job. And about 2 months later, she came back and wondered if her job was available. And unfortunately, it wasn't. I had replaced her with another person. And after 2 months, I couldn't just let her go to bring the other girl back. I did actually ask around within the company to see if anybody was in need of a secretary or an assistant, um, but could not do it. So her choice had gone wrong. It seemed to be a right choice, and I couldn't argue with it other than to you know, request that she stay and that I would do my best over time, but
Mm.
it wasn't suitable for her. But it was sad to see that a person who had made a choice that was looking, to improve, seemed like a good choice, and it turned out wrong. And that was, that kind of opened my eyes to the other side of choices, that just making choices and even consciously thinking through choices, you don't necessarily get the right outcome. It's not guaranteed. So, we really want to, when we make choices, we want to think them through. We want to look at them. We want to try to anticipate how they're going to go, but we also want to kind of in a chess move kind of way. We want to think ahead, multiple moves, what could happen, what might happen, and what are our options. There's more to making choices than just doing something.
Something that I just that really illustrates something that I just saw a video about the other day, that when you make a choice, whether it's between one thing or another or many things, when you make that choice, all the other choices are now moot. And you may end up like your secretary did, at a different place, and it's not as good, and you think, oh well, if I had stayed or if I had made a different choice, things would have been better. But you don't know that. That choice will never have been made. The example that the video I saw was talking about, like whether you should go to Harvard or Yale, and if you go to Harvard and it's terrible, you think, oh well, I should have gone to Yale, it would have been better. But you don't know that. And so we have this tendency to fantasize about the choices we didn't make, when really the choice we did make is the only choice. That
Mhm.
was the right choice because that's the one you made. And so all those other ones are nebulous and not important anymore, because you can't go back and make them, as your secretary found out.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so what the situation is then, rather than lamenting about what could have been done and should have been done, the focus really is, what do I do now? And so when I look at things, when I see situations like that and hear about situations like that, this is where I talk about grace and compassion, especially for yourself, because you made a choice. The option was made available and you made a choice. And regardless of how that choice turned out, you made a choice. And so it's not a matter of going back to fix it, it's really a matter of dealing with what is happening in the moment now, because you could have done all that you could have done all the planning, all the hindsight, all the consultations, talking to people, reading, everything, and it could still turn out to be something that ends up unpleasant, and that's okay. You regroup, you assess, and you go again. And this time going again, sometimes you could look at the way the choice was made and think, I could have probably maybe done a little bit more research. And sometimes you could look at it and can't find anything that you could have done differently, because that's just how life is. Sometimes things turn out like that. So I guess when I think of challenging my choices, I don't only think about doing due diligence, as it's called. I also think about the compassionate side of that. So let's say I did it or I didn't do the due diligence. That matters not. As Cass said, I am here now. What do I do now? That's in the past. I learned from it, develop from there, but what do I do now? And that's a new choice. And how am I going to approach this new choice? And Steve, you said something about the small choices, and I immediately thought about BJ Fogg and Tiny Habits, because that's pretty much what it is. The small choices, the tiny habits, we make a small choice each time to keep going,
Mhm.
and so we're not looking at the macro, the huge big picture of this massive goal that we're after, or this massive choice. We look at the little things that make it up, and that's the small everyday choices that we make. Yeah.
I can't
I
remember if I said this just quick. I can't remember if I said this on recording last week or if it was in another conversation with one of you. But the idea that in science fiction, if you time travel and you make a small, you step on a butterfly and all of a sudden there's no butterflies in the future. We allow for the idea that small changes can have big effect in that kind of science fiction regard, but we forget that in our own lives a small change like that can have a big lasting effect, and it could be positive or negative, but it certainly can make a big change out of a small.
Yeah. I again, I think back in my own life, and in my first 10 years of marriage, I moved 11 times. It's probably why I have a second marriage. But the making those moves, and during that period of time, I had several different businesses and a handful of different jobs. And I've had people ask me, looking back at that, would you have made a different choice? What if you'd done this, or what if you'd done that? And would it have made a difference? And now, at the age I am, and that's old, by the way, I can sit here and honestly say life doesn't owe me a dime. All of those choices that they made, and I continued to make choices going through my life, and doing different things. I've done that in the last few years as well. Um, there's not a thing that I can look back on. I mean, I can go back to any particular point, any recognizable choice, any choice that was big enough. I can't remember what I ate for breakfast 23 years ago, but any major choice that I made, a job, a business, a move, a choice that affected the family, a vacation, things that you can remember. Um, I can't look at any one of them and say there would be a better way. I can easily analyze them and say, well, I could have done this. At each choice point, there were multiple choices I could have made, and I chose one. I'm not saying that all of my choices were best and that I'm the best at making choices. I'm just saying that when I look back at them, everything turned out okay. Where I am right now today is where I want to be in life. I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm here and doing because of what I was and did, and all of it added together here. And I look back, and I had a very early coach in that first 10 years. I had a coach who. Um, he shared this with all of the people that he was coaching, but he particularly said the two sorriest words in the English language are "if only," and he was conveying that it's not because you're in a position where you think back and say "if only," because if you'd done it differently it would be better, but it's because you have that mindset, that lack of gratitude, that lack of appreciation, that lack of a sense of abundance, that you can say, if only I had done this, thinking that it would turn out any differently, any better, whatever. You end up with a mindset that's always looking back and always questioning what you do, instead of embracing the choices you've made. You made them for a reason. And so embrace them and build upon them and move forward and make more choices. Become comfortable with the process of making choices. And that will open doors to you that you can't imagine, and will give you experiences that you can't imagine. We talked today about sharing things through storytelling. I don't have enough time left to tell all the stories that I could tell, the wonderful stories that I could share, because I've experienced so much. And I have all of this history that is right there for me. And, it's from making choices. Each choice is a story. Each choice
Yeah.
opens the door to multiple stories. And we move ahead, and we have that success in our lives. Now, success is different to different people too. I find today that most people measure success in dollars, and I think that's a sad thing, perhaps a poor choice. because there are so many other measurement keys that you could use that will bring, better things to your mind if you use
Yeah,
them to.
I want to interrupt because I don't want to forget what I want to add. When you said just now about um looking back at a choice and pretty much second guessing the choice, thinking that okay, maybe a different choice would have been better. When I consider challenging a choice, is not necessarily challenging a choice from the past. It would be challenging a present choice so that I can understand it and therefore A, make the best choice, or B, make a change as necessary.
Mhm.
So, because sometimes, as you said, lots of small choices happen, and most of us don't think about those small choices or the impact that they can make. And so, we might want to be the type of person who starts their day early and does the whole yoga and journaling and breathing and all the the wonderful things that we've read about other people doing, and we're thinking okay, that's the best thing for us, and we just can't seem to get it done. But when we look at our choices, we might realize that we go to bed at midnight. If you go to bed at midnight consistently, especially after a long day, it's quite difficult for you to wake at 5 or even 6, and start your day with energy. So there's a choice before the choice that you want to make, because the choices are all affecting each other. And so when I think of challenging choices, that's what I think about. And based on what you said, Steve, I think it's important to make that distinction. When we speak about challenging choices, we're not talking about looking back into your past and second guessing the choices that you've made. We're
Mhm.
speaking about looking at your current choices and seeing which ones work for you, which ones you want to keep, which ones you want to change.
Yeah. Another phrase for challenging choices could be analyzing choices,
Yeah.
and doing that in advance. Any choice, by definition, has two or more options to it. And so what we're doing is we're challenging each of those options ahead of time to try and find as much as we can about how it's going to affect us, how, moving to that house, how taking that job, how buying that car is going to affect us. And there's a lot of things that come into play with these major choices, and also with little choices, but they're they don't come up on the event horizon as much. But if we uh, if we challenge the choice and really thoroughly analyze the options and where each one of them is likely to lead, we can't be sure, we can't know, and that's why we have a
Mhm.
choice to make. But
Yeah.
but if you could analyze it and challenge it and always come out with the perfect answer, well then, wouldn't be a very exciting life, I guess. I don't know, but
But I'd say good for you. If you could do that,
yeah,
then
and
good for you.
I certainly never could, and
Mm.
I was
But
always surprised by outcomes, but always embrace them and move forward.
yeah, I want to add something, and I know Cass wants to say something, so let me be quick. Um, that supposes if it is that you analyze and you get the right choice every single time, it supposes that there is only one path and only one journey that you can follow. And that isn't the case, and that has not been the case in my experience. There are some things where you have maybe three or four choices, and any two of them would be useful and beneficial and enjoyable. And so it's really opening up yourself to the experience, that one experience might give something slightly different from the other one, but they can both be enjoyable. And so sometimes there is no wrong choice, because either one you would enjoy. I mean, like for me, chocolate or ice cream, they're both enjoyable. I can have either one.
Chocolate
I
ice
want
cream.
Yeah.
That's a really great contrast for what I'm about to say. I did want to talk a little bit about at some point the illusion of agency, the idea that sometimes you're in a place where there are no choices for you. That even if you are making the best of the choices that you have, you don't have those choices, and it can come in when you come up face to face with things like um, systemic oppression and racism and being socioeconomic hardship and places where you're choosing, do I turn the electricity on this month or do I put food on the table for my children, because your choice has come to a place, you're in a place in your life where things are just, that's the way they are, that's the reality of what you're in. And it's okay to be angry about your choices. It's okay to
Yeah.
be angry about the choices that you get. You can only afford to live in a certain neighborhood, and that certain neighborhood only has a certain type of taxes, and those taxes only put a certain number of books in the school for your children and pay teachers in a certain way. You can't send your kid to that private school, and you can't, Montessori is maybe what you think is the best philosophy for schooling, but you certainly can't afford that private Montessori school. Those, I think it's that being gentle with yourself around choices sometimes,
Mhm.
recognizing that you can still be doing the best that you possibly can, and you're not somebody who is like, oh, do I choose which car I want, or do I choose which vacation I want, or those are things that maybe are outside of your purview right now in your life, and you haven't done
Yeah.
anything wrong to be where you are at.
I think the idea of not having a choice is an illusion, even if you are in a situation where all the choices have negative consequences. um, you would still have a choice which one of the negative consequences you want. Like for that example that you gave, lights or food. So if I choose either one, then I'm going to have to do without something. Regardless of which choice I make, I'm going to have to do without. And so from that perspective and from what I've read and in my own personal experiences, sometimes choices come with a little bit of sacrifice. And when they come with that sacrifice, the speed at which we make those choices and we engage in the sacrifice is totally up to us. Nobody from the outside should have that authority to come to us and say, hey, um, you should be doing better, unless they are providing the means for which you can do better. And
Hmm.
so I understand exactly what you mean by the compassion, because sometimes we really are doing the best that we can. And in these kinds of situations, I always think about, there's this philosophy that, parenting and how parents brought up their children, that's what causes half of the ills or even more in this world. So you'd find, like, there's a study on everything that goes back to, this is what your parents did to you. That's almost the idea that comes out of it. And we sometimes look back and think, we wished our parents would have done this and would have done that. But from the way I look at it, parents do the best that they can with what they have and what they know. Even if you think they could have done better, that is what they were faced with, and they did the best that they can. And so we might have situations where there are extenuating situations. We're not talking about those extenuating situations where there was, abject neglect or those kinds of things. This is like more general, right? But the idea is that those are things of the past, and we really have to be looking at the now. And in a situation where I have to choose between food and the light bill, then what are my options? And I feel like sometimes when we make that um, distinction, we might miss options if we don't open up and speak to someone where we can get help. And part of the reason I'm saying that is um, my sister worked for Habitat for Humanity for a long time, and the organization she works for right now, I forgot the name of it, but it's a similar organization, and they offer financial counseling to individuals who are in debt or on welfare, and they help them organize their finances, learn how to make choices that could benefit them, and different things. And quite a number of their clients, they come into this situation stuck in the mindset that this is all I can do, when there are options, because they don't know of the other options. And for many of them, once they are provided with the insight that there are other options, they begin gradually making different choices. But it's a gradual process. So it's not simply a matter of, okay, now you do better and you suddenly, out of your situation. It's a gradual thing, and it takes time. And so that process of making different choices in a situation where all the choices require a sacrifice is not going to be easy, but feeling like if there's an option or there's hope makes a difference. And it really allows you to have compassion with yourself. This is where I am. These are my options. It's going to feel painful for a little bit, but eventually this will subside and I can do better. And for me, that is the first choice that needs to be made. I can change something.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
the problem here, or the fallacy here, in terms of, electric bill or food, it's two things. We look at that, and that of course is a choice that
Yeah.
many people have to make, or similar types of things. But the fallacy in that is that we only have those two choices, and it's got to be one or the other. And what am I going to do? But if we step back from it and look at it properly, if we challenge that choice and do that effectively, and that may be, as you said, reaching out to someone and
Yeah.
asking,
Sometimes when
bringing
you're in
someone
it, you
in.
can't do that. You really don't have the capacity to do it when you're in it
Right.
alone. And that's why we need to know that we're not alone in making these kinds of choices.
Which then you get a different perspective, and you are able to realize that, well, what is the problem here? What is the reason we feel we only have these two choices? And it's because of a lack of money, that we just don't have enough to pay both. Well, a third choice is to find a way to earn more money. And, a fourth choice may be to change your spending habits, because there may be superfluous, superfluous spending going on that could be applied to these two items. And who knows how many other choices that an expert could give you access to.
One choice I want to add in is that many organizations have payment plans.
Hmm.
So you don't have to pay the whole bill, you can pay part of it. Learning how to prepare meals differently so that you can spread that a little bit differently. So, like you said, there are more than just those two choices.
Well, exactly, because I have noticed in many cases, the less finances a person has, it seems, and this is just observation, it is not a case study, but it seems that they tend to purchase, I want to say higher price, but I'm not suggesting that it's brand name pricing, but rather in terms of packaging and preparation, they purchase higher priced foods. I've seen people who don't have a whole lot of money going and purchasing a whole stack of TV dinners, and that's a very poor way to, an expensive way to get the food value that you need. It's a convenient way, but when you're struggling to pay the light bill or buy food, you want to reconsider the food that you're buying. And so, and that's just a
Yeah.
possible example of many choices. But as you say, looking at the options that are there, the payment plans and other things, there may be assistance that you can get that you don't have to
Yeah.
pay back. That there's grants and other generous supports that will help you.
Yeah, because there are some situations, because I want to interrupt now so that it could come close to what you just said. There are some situations, like one that I know of personally, where the parent, the mom, single parent, she has cancer. And so when she has chemo, she can't work. And because of that, she can't um, hold a steady job that pays anything significant. And so in a situation like that, um, it's really challenging to tell her something like, find a way to make more money or, choose different meals. Whatever she could hold down after chemo is what she would need to eat. So in a situation like that, just as you're saying, what are the options? Who can support? Who can help? Because there are options. And I think even after checking in one or two situations, maybe the first person says no, the second person says no. You keep asking
Mhm,
because that's a choice. Keep asking, or what was the other alternative? So there are situations where there's no easy fix. There is no easy fix, but there is still hope because there's more than what each person individually sees on their own. And for me, the choice to get help, that is the first part of it. And quite aside from speaking about these dire situations, just simply generally asking for help. That is something I had to learn,
mhm,
to ask for help. And it's not because I didn't know the options were available. I just didn't think that I wanted those options because I felt like I had to do it on my own. And that's a whole mindset and a whole other conversation. But sometimes we grow up thinking that to be an adult and to do the adulting thing properly, you have to do certain things on your own. And so coming into the situation with that mindset, I never asked for help. I never even considered that it's okay to ask for help and that help was an option. And so many situations happened that could have been avoided had I had a different mindset of asking for help. And now, on the other side of that, I understand why some people don't ask for help because they think it's a sign of weakness. And I mean, there's a host of reasons. But sometimes just recognizing that there is hope and there is help is actually the first choice and a really important one that is not as easy as we think to make.
mhm. Yeah, choices are not easy to make. Good choices, responsible choices, are not necessarily easy to make. They require a process. They require, conscious thought, and simply refusing to allow things just to happen to you.
Hmm.
You need to
Hmm.
step out and do that. I think certainly in my own experience, the value gained by consciously making choices is is immense. It's hard to put even a value on it, or a
Yeah.
measurement on it. But I can say that it has been a very powerful thing for me. And it doesn't mean that everything always turns out right. You can make bad
Mm.
choices. You can make good choices but not follow through with them, and then things don't happen the way you expect they will. You can make a choice, and then you can abrogate making the next choice. And if you don't go through consistently the process that's necessary, maybe it's because you're simply not aware of that process.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the idea of us as coaches, that we can't make choices for people, or we can't help people make choices unless they come to us and take us on as a coach or a guide or a mentor. We can offer a great deal of value to people from our own experience, from our training, from our learning. We can assist people. We can work with people, guide people, in order to allow them to understand the processes necessary. I was working with a person earlier this week who did not understand the value of a process of doing something and following it through, and understanding the necessary steps. And he had been struggling through a number of things, going in circles, always coming back to the starting point. This is no good. This doesn't work. And yet each of the things he was doing actually do work, and he was on the right track on so many of them. And when we got together and talked about it, and I could see where the error of his ways, so to speak, where he was failing to make the next choice or failing to take the next necessary step simply because he didn't recognize it, didn't realize it was there. And so his lack was holding him back, his actual lack of knowledge, lack of information. And it was a real easy fix to look at what he wanted to do and show where these other steps were. And in many cases, he actually had the material right in front of him as of what he needed to do. It was such, um, an eye opener for him, kind of a smack the forehead kind of thing. But he wasn't getting there from here. He just did not have the guide or the map or the strategy, or the
Mhm.
blueprint, as some people call it. And so he was literally going around in creative circles that were not getting him to where he needed to be. Uh, it's what you said, Shelley Ann, about asking and people not thinking about asking. Somebody, he was a referral.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed him to me knew the problem he was having, but didn't know the solutions, so they couldn't help him. But they had had experience with me, and they thought I probably would know the solutions, and I did. Fortunately, and it turned out to be a very easy set of solutions for a series of problems he was having. Um, and now, not only the solving of those problems by being able to make the right choices, but he learned the process of making choices, and that a choice isn't a self-contained thing, that it leads to more
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah.
And having that understanding, he's now able to go. He'll run into problems from time to time. We all do. But he'll also know that he can ask, and whether it's me or somebody else, he'll know that he can ask for help. But he'll also recognize when things aren't working, that maybe there is another option, maybe there is another step that he has to take, and he can open that up to himself. He can solve his own problems because he knows the
Yeah.
process of doing so. And I think that that's a real kicker in the area of choices, and then challenging your choices is not only did I make the right choice, but is this choice all there is? Is there more to this? Is there another step? Is there another guideline that I need to follow to go forward? And
Mhm.
I said something to you, Cass, the other day about it not being rocket science, and you said for some people it is. It's confusing. It's complex. And I've thought about that since we had that conversation. And by the way, folks, we have conversations away from this presentation that we share with each other as well. Coaches have coaches, and coaches have friends, and they share. Um, but the idea that for me this was an easy solution because I know that material. I know I've learned over time. I know that for him, it was desperation. He was at the end of his rope. He didn't know what to do next, and he was worried about losing everything, and he was blaming himself that he had made the wrong choices, and he hadn't made the wrong choices. He just didn't make the next choices, and it was and so when I say that now and I say it's easy, I'm not trying to suggest that to people out there listening that if you're having a problem, it's easy, don't worry about it. No, for you, it
Yeah.
can be immensely difficult. Reach out and ask someone for help because they may have the easy solution that makes it better for you going forward.
Yeah.
Something about choices that maybe I'm going to float as our next topic is the idea of radical acceptance. That sometimes you get to a place and there are choices, there are always places to go, the things that are going to be next. You're never going to be stuck in that moment. But sometimes before you can decide what those next choices are, there's this radical acceptance of the way things are now, instead of living in that past or future, the fantasy or the rumination. You have to realize where you are, what this present moment looks like, and
Mhm.
therefore what those choices are that are important to do next.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
sum. If I'm going to interrupt quickly here with a short story. Keep it short. Of all of what we've just said, that really makes sense. Um, you know, if you're coming to visit me and you've never been here before, and you use a map and you get now with GPS and all that kind of stuff, you can probably get right to my doorstep. But if you don't use that, or before that was available, um, you get a map and you'd come to the city where I live. You could find that. You could find the routes to get there, and you got there. And when you got to the edge of the city, you'd call me on the phone and say, "Hey, Steve, how do I get to your place? I've just arrived at the city. How do I get to your place?" That's what you have to do. You have to ask. How you seek help. You're making choices. There's roads you can take. You're making choices. Well, there's a question that I have to ask. If you call me and say, "How do I get to your house?" There's a question that I have to ask, and it's fairly simple. Where are you now? I can't tell you the route to get to my house. I mean, I'm on a street, so there's two ways to go. That street has many cross streets and a junction at each end
Mhm.
that you could be coming from. There's 20 different ways from the outside edge of this town to get to my house, and all of them are good depending on where you are right now around the town, what spot you're at in terms of getting here. Now, there's 5 or 6 major possibilities that I could pretty much guess. If I know where you've come from, I know who you are and where you've come from, I can be pretty sure where you are when you call me, but not necessarily. And in many cases,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know at all. So when you're seeking help, the person who's going to help you has to ask where you are now. And if you don't know where you are now, then it's very difficult for them to help you, if at all.
Yeah, and that's why someone who is interested in their client, a coach who is more about helping their client, will not just jump into, okay, this is what we're doing, or this is what I can offer you. The beginning of it would be questions
Mhm.
and, you know, reflection activities and, what is happening? What do you want? Where do you think you are now? Try to separate perception from the as objective as possible reality. And then, so, how do you feel what actually is, and how do you feel about that? And so you begin with an understanding of the client and their situation, And as they're moving forward, the speed at which the client goes also is up to the client. And I'm
Mhm.
looking at the time and I feel like that's a whole other conversation for another time. So next week's topic, what
What was that topic, Cass, specifically?
I said radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance. I like that.
yeah, yeah, we
I'm
could
at
work
this
with that.
point. I don't know where I would go with it, but I'll do some thinking on it and a little bit of research. But the play of those two words together. I understand acceptance and I understand radical, and I like the idea of radical acceptance. So I'm game for that. Shelley Ann?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep, me too, because I think one of the things that we do need to radically accept is the speed at which we get things done. Sometimes we want it to happen instantly, but it doesn't quite work like that. So,
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
definitely.
We're on. You've done it again, Cass. Thank you, and thank you to the two members of the board along with me. You just contributed some awesome material today, and it's got me thinking. I hope it's got other people thinking. To all of you out there who have watched through this, thank you for your patience and time and understanding, and I hope we've shared something of value for you. We'll be back here next week, same time, same channel. And radical acceptance will be our discussion. Uh,
Take care, everybody.
bye
Bye-bye.
bye.